Hey. Hope you guys can see me okay. I'm going to try to do this again. And again, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as humanly possible. I actually did a live stream yesterday, but I was on a different electronic, and I was outside of, the Wi-Fi space, so it kept jumping. It was real choppy, and I want to make sure that my point is crystal clear. So here I go again. I'm gonna try to do it fast though, and hope that I can do it where it won't be so choppy as yesterday. So I'm talking about real briefly the Jane Elliott's premiere on the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith and her daughter Willow and her mother, and what she was saying. And as I watched the program, I was a little bit disappointed at how surface the conversation remained as it related to race matters between, European women and black women. And so I just wanted to share my own personal perspective. And I want to, again, start off by just saying that this is in no way, shape, or form a slight or a disrespect or trying to downgrade what Jada Pinkett Smith and her family is doing on that Red Table Talk, because I think that it is a powerful thing that they're doing every week, and it can really help a lot of us out here, allowing them to share their stories like they do. So I'm impressed with what they do, and I hope that they keep doing it. But I just want to bring to you guys a different perspective on what I heard from the whole Jane Elliot conversation. And I'm going to start with sharing with you guys some research material. Okay? So this is a book about melanin by Dr. Laela Africa. And he also has some YouTube videos out there that I highly recommend relating to this topic, understanding melanin, what makes us different. So if you want to check out a quick YouTube video of his too, definitely jump on there and do that. This is The History of White People by Neil Irvine Painter. It's a sister. She wrote this book. It's very thick. It's like a Bible, but it's got some really good information in it. And then I'm going to share. You'll understand why I'm sharing these books and titles when I go into what I'm attempting to share. Willie Lynch Syndrome, Willie Lynch Letter and the Making of a Slave. This is a really small pamphlet that I highly recommend that every black household should have and should read and should share with their children. And this goes into the mind state of the European, how they think. Okay? Making of the White Man, by Paul Lawrence Guthrie, by way of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Definitely check that out. More information relating to this topic. Our dear ancestor, Frances Cress Wilson, her novelty book, The ISIS Papers, gives us a really good breakdown, an exceptional breakdown on the differences as it relates to us as a people, and as it relates to us in comparison to other people. Again, I just wanted, if you're just joining in and you don't know what I'm talking about, I did a video yesterday, and it was really choppy, so I wanted to do it again so I can be crystal clear as to what I was attempting to share about Jada Pinkett Smith's Red Table Talk, her wonderful Red Table Talk. But I wanted to give a different perspective on Jane Elliott's mention about how we are all cousins and that we were all, there's only one race, the human race, and that she's just a lighter version of black people. Well, I beg to differ. I think that first of all, what I recognized right away when I was watching is that when Jada was attempting to bridge the gap between white women and black women, and she was asked, it was coming to a point where it's like, well, what do we have to do as black people to help bridge the gap? And from my basic understanding and studies, I recognize that it's not up to us to bridge any gap between us. We did not create European aggression. We cannot fix European aggression against us because we didn't create it, and we don't actively participate in it. And so to ask us to try to fix something that we didn't create and we don't even actively participate in, I think is doing ourselves a disservice, because we can be doing something completely different to help our own situation than making any attempts to change who they are. So that was one of the things that I didn't agree with. She also mentioned that she had some prejudices. Her both had admitted to having some prejudices against white people, and Jada went on to share that as if that was a problem. So let me just break down the word. Prejudice means to prejudge a situation or a circumstance or person. And so if we are prejudging European aggression, our history as it relates to these people, what we've been through, how we are treated, not just in history, but in modern times. And so if we are using all of this information to come to a conclusion, that's prejudging. So a logical conclusion in my mind would be, heck yeah, you got some prejudices against white people. If this is what we're judging, if we're laying all the evidence out on the table. And so for her to feel some kind of shame about how she felt, I think, again, it's doing our own selves an injustice, because it's like we're taking on the weight of what somebody else done to us. It's like a battered and abused relationship, and the husband is just beating the wife to a pulp continuously and consistently, day in, day out. And then she turns around and feels bad about getting the beating. She feels bad herself. So we got to put things in their proper perspective. I thought, personally speaking, that her mother had the most logical conclusions to her feelings, and I believe that's because she had a little bit more historical relevancy relating to the whole conversation and the topic at hand. So I related a lot more with Jada's mom, than anybody else on the panel, because for me, it just, that's a foregone conclusion. It just makes logical sense to have some type of prejudices against those who have caused you harm and continue to. And the fact that we don't is really dangerous, because now it means you guards are down. You know what I'm saying? So, again, her mother, I think, had a good pulse beat on the history. And I think that we come to these type of emotional conclusions when we don't have the information. And the information comes from studying, comes from researching history. It comes from going up under and sitting up under the feet of others who have studied and lectured and know and have a broader perspective and wider world view of what this thing called racism and what we're dealing with. All that helps us to come to more logical conclusions as it relates to these race matters. And so, and it showed itself at the table when Jane Elliot came, and then she asked the women, and she asked Jada, how long have racism been around? And Jada didn't have the answer to that. And so those type of little subtle cues and hints allows me to know that that's why she comes to the conclusions that she comes to modern day, because she don't have the history. Her mother had a better understanding of history. If you can recall, she answered Jane as to how racism began, or when racism began. So that's important, I think, for us all to get those points to get. And if you just joining me, and I'm talking about the Red Table Talk with Jane Elliot coming on as a guest, and definitely you really want to see it. You really want to watch it, because you'll better understand where I'm coming from if you watch the Red Table Talk they did. I believe it was last week. Another thing I think we suffer from is identity crisis. It's very real. It's real. Another tidbit of evidence popped up for that for me when Jane Elliot asked those around the table to stand up who were biracial. And you saw Jada Pinkett Smith and her daughter begin to stand up. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, her daughter, her mother and father is black. What is she doing standing up? And Jada, I don't know her personal situation. I don't know if her father's black. I don't know. I mean, white. I don't know. But her mom sat firm, and they were standing up. And I was like, wow, that's interesting to me. So again, that lets me know that we really suffer from an identity crisis. We really don't understand who we are. We really don't. We don't understand the power of melanin, what makes us so different than everybody else. And we like to regurgitate and repeat things that we hear other people say. We are all the same except for the color of our skin. There's only one race, the human race, all those types of things. And then we take on what other people say, like a Jane Elliot. Why do we have to be validated by Europeans? Why is it that she even have to come on the show, which she has, every right to, and she does have information? But I just gave you guys a small, brief tidbit of all the wise and studied scholars in our own race that is teaching us about us. And so why do we have to be validated and go outside of us to get information about who we are? And then we become miseducated. And then we have this identity crisis. Because people, the first law of nature, self-preservation is the first law of nature. Everybody's going to take care of their rightful selves first and foremost. Naturally. Everybody does that but us, unfortunately. But naturally, every race of people are going to do what they need to do to benefit themselves first. And then they may think about helping you later. And so for us to always go to Europeans to get education, to learn more about who we are and things of that nature, we got to really look at and unpack that. We really got to unpack that, because it's something mentally gone wrong with that concept. Again, I think again we seek validation from white people, hence accepting their word as truth. And so we will go and sit in front of a Jane Elliot and agree and believe everything she say, as opposed to going and sitting in front of our own scholars and getting the information from them. I think Jada's, if you can remember, she had mentioned she was teased and belittled as a youth. Remember, she said there were white people that would teased her, and I found it interesting that she would then turn around and date a white man. And I know that some of you guys are probably saying in your mind, okay, well, so what? All white people, we can't stamp racism on all white people. I agree with that. So she should be free to date whoever she wants. That's true. We all got free will. But I'm saying connecting the dots as it relates to socially and how we interact with European people, and the fact that she was teased and ridiculed and belittled. And then remember, she said she dated a white man. He was very white. Remember, her mother was against that, adamantly against that. So let's keep in mind. And I think that, again, that whole thing going back to seeking validation from them. So, you know what I'm saying? That I'm just as good. You know, you may have hurt me and teased me and belittle me and call me all these names, but I think I'm just as good. So I'm gonna go ahead out here and show you I'm just as good by intermingling or wanting or seeking that validation from them is all I'm trying to say. Now, I'm not sure that's exactly why she did what she did, but it's an interesting dynamic that her mother comes from a place of, we ain't having that, and she doesn't. So I think we are emotionally driven as opposed to logically driven. That's why we can say things like we're all the same, and we get nervous even with these type of conversations. I'm sure there's some people that'll watch, hey, Edward, some people that'll watch this and can't even get all the way through it because their emotions won't allow them to. That's real. That's real. As it relates to this topic, but I think that's a dangerous place to be, is because you don't open yourself up to understanding a deeper level of how far this thing goes. It's deeper than just your emotions and how you feel, and you think, oh, we shouldn't be mean, or we shouldn't say anything against white people, and you're just racist if you feel that way about them, without understanding the deeper levels as to what makes us different, and not wanting to touch and broach those subjects. We like to stay on the topics that that show us that we're all relatable. So we like to stay where we're all the same. We're the ways we're similar, and we ignore the ways we're different. And I think that's an imbalance, because you don't get the full picture. You only get half. It's like going to a church every Sunday and praising and worshiping all the good and beautiful things that the Bible speaks about, but you ignore completely the revolution and the rebellion and all the other things that the Bible speaks about, so that you're not getting the full spectrum of the picture, personally speaking. I think we suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Willow brought that up at the red table. PTSD, that's a real thing. And so and how our genes, we hold memory in our gene bank, in our DNA, and we pass those memories through onto our children. And so it's a reason why you can sit and watch a picture or a movie pertaining to racism, slavery, or lynching, or something horrific like that, and you feel so strongly about it, and sometimes you even go to tears. You break out crying. Why? My father used to say, that was you back then. That was you. That's so the DNA just carries on. So those feelings and those emotions carry on, not just for us either. So we're not this secluded race of people on the earth. So this scenario relates to Europeans as well. So the same memory bank that those people who were them back then, it's the same scenario. And so that's why I'm so adamantly against this whole thing of us ever coming together and linking arms and being side by side and kumbaya, because we don't really understand the history of us and how we relate to the Europeans, and not just here on this continent. It's a worldwide construct. Racism is a worldwide construct. Anywhere you go in the world, you will find racism against black people. Anywhere. So until we, again, understand it clearer and broaden our understanding as to how deep this thing goes, we'll still keep getting hung up and keep falling for the okie doke and keep trying to convince other people to love us and respect us and care for us and all those things, as opposed to going in and doing these things for ourselves and and doing what we need to do as a people to get ourselves up out of this hole we're in, because nobody else is going to do it for us. Nobody else is going to love us like we can love ourselves, going to provide for us like we're going to provide for ourselves. Again, self-preservation is the first law of nature. So we're attempting to convincing other people to go outside of nature. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to convince ourselves because we're not even doing that for ourselves. Self-preserving. Again, I think that we react emotionally as opposed to biologically and scientifically, and about how we are different, and all the things that make us different. When we go get into the science of melanin, and it shares the difference in why our hair textures are the way they are, why black people hair kinky and nobody else's on earth is, what light green and blue eyes really is. And I'm not going to go into all that deeply. I just tell you guys to study because it's an interesting phenomenon how a lot of us will put those light contact lenses in our eyes without even understanding the science behind the differences and why our eyes are dark with melanin and why other people's are light without it. And so what makes us jump higher and sing soulful. And I was just even thinking the other day, I said it's interesting if we were all at a party or something, and you know how we can get into this rhythmic groove and we're all dancing, and maybe we all doing the same dances, and next thing you know we're moving succinctly, I think I'm saying that right, you know, and say for instance a white person will get up and attempt to move with us. 9 times out of 10 we're on a whole different wavelength. We're on all that's more than physical. Okay, so we really gotta again understand these things about us. So why is it that we don't even dance to the same tunes, and we're different rhythmically, and we don't sound the same, deeper voice tones, or we don't even look the same. Our melanin is different. We don't suffer from the same illnesses and diseases. There's some diseases that white people get that we don't even get. All these things are science and biology, and that make us different, that we really got to study to understand. And again, this book here even shares with how different we think. We don't even think on the same wavelength. We don't, family. As bad as we want to believe that we all the same. When you dig it deeper than the surface, you realize that we're not. And that's important to know. The reason I'm specifying this is because not knowing this allows you to stay miseducated. And when you're miseducated and when you don't know who you are, and all this is relating to learning who you are, anybody can throw the wool over your eyes, and we will continue to fall victim to other people's way that they want us to maneuver. Okay? Hence how people become slaves to other people. So it's important, it's detrimentally important that we get this information for ourselves, because then you can't be fooled. All the technology is you don't absorb none of that. Annie, she was the European who was the producer that Jada brought out on the table. And remember, Jada had mentioned that she didn't want to be there. She didn't want to talk about it. And I thought about that. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Because we don't realize that woman has a base too, so she's not a black woman. And so she really can't relate. She really can't. We be trying to force a round peg into a square hole when we're not all the same. And so this woman was like, she mentioned, she said, I may have white privilege, but I don't know where my white privilege resides. And I believe that woman. And we like to beat up on people like her. And oh, even Jane Elliot mentioned, who your privilege and all that. We don't even think the same. We don't look through the same lens as these people. And so they don't see the world as we do. So we attempt to make them fit into our shoes and see the world as we do. When they don't live the life that we live, the vast majority of them. And those who do understand, that really take the time to get the information and understand it for themselves, I'm talking about those Europeans, when they really dig deep to really understand the plight, that's why the whole white guilt thing. Then they go into, they put barriers up. Like, I don't want nothing to do with that, because this means I'm going to have to give up my white privilege. And if I have to give up my white privilege, then things are going to change. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Why would you, if you had privilege in this world, why would you want to give that up? Think about that as a black person. Why would you want to do that? What benefit would it be for you to give that up to somebody else? So, but that's what we try to attempt to make them do, or to see us as equal, when the world don't operate like that. I just meant, when the Europeans have a negative birth rate. Please research that too, family, if you're not sure what I'm talking about. A negative birth rate, meaning that there's more of them worldwide. This ain't just here, worldwide, that are dying than actually being born. So they're in a negative, and they are the only race of people on the earth that is in this current predicament. So if we are all the same, why are they the only ones with a negative birth rate? Those are some things that we should really think about and consider. Another thing that allows me to know that the educated Europeans know who they are. They understand clearly who they are, is when they go into the labs and start studying themselves for health reasons, for medicines, and just to gain a better, proper understanding, like, of the body, biology. They use white lab mice, right? Now, the brown mouse is the most prevalent mouse. You can find any brown mouse running up and down any hood in America. I mean, they're all over the place. But why do you go out of your way to take white mice and breed them? You have to breed these mice to be white, right? So why do you go out of your way to breed white mice to study? Because they know who they are. And if you look up what a white mouse is, you'll understand why they tell us we're all the same except for the color of our skin. And we feed right into that rhetoric because we don't study who we are. So again, those are just some other things for you to think about and consider before you start screaming, we're all one race, the human race, and things of that nature. It runs deeper than we know. It really does. And I think that the whole Jane Elliot thing, that's why I wanted to talk about it. It was so heavy on my spirit, because what we do is we take that information because it's coming from a European, and we're, yeah, she right. And we take it and we run with it. And it sticks without us knowing getting a deeper understanding. Najib, hey, I understand it's not important to get preoccupied with white people, but it's very important to know who you are as it relates to other people. So that's what I'm talking about here today. Again, black men dating white women, that came up in the conversation, actually, and Jada was very firm in her response to her mom about that, and how she felt that she gets tired of us taking on the responsibilities of our black men. And she said that ain't had nothing to do with what was going on there. That ain't have, that was their decision. That was the black man's decision to do. And she said she gets tired of us taking on those as us as black women and putting all the onus on ourselves. And so she made a comparison too. So I thought that was good information. I definitely agreed with her there. I think we seek acceptance from these people far too much and far too often. We try, to seek acceptance. The fact that we are in this current predicament where here we are, descendants of the enslaved. Our ancestors were in chattel slavery in this country, and here we are, the descendants of those people, and we still suffer by the hands of those who rule over us. Okay, so we're oppressed by them, and the fact that all the history we went through, all the abuse, all the murder, all the rape, all the suffering, the things that we still currently go through with the police brutality and all those things, and all the things that keep, the pumping drugs into our communities, and we all these things that we suffer through, and yet and still we attempt to be close to these people, and we want them to love us and do all these things and be equal with us and accept us and all that stuff. The seeking the validation, I think, it's a mental illness, in my opinion. It really is. We suffer from an identity crisis, because if we understood who we are, we wouldn't even be trying so hard to get somebody else to accept us. We just wouldn't. Because we would walk in our divinity, and we're not doing that. I see it all day, every day. We're just not, and we try to convince these people to accept us and love us and things, because we don't have the full picture and we don't understand who we are. Again, I just wanted to finish that up with saying that I'll show you these books again. This goes into a better understanding of how we are different as it relates to our thinking. Black people just don't think like this, family. We don't, This goes into understanding of our melanin and what makes us different internally, not just physically, but internally. Definitely check out Dr. Leila Africa on that. And these are just a drop in the bucket of different information that our people and some European scholars as well are sharing out there, that gives us a full understanding and a complete picture of what makes us different than anybody else on earth. The Isis paper, our sister, she's now an ancestor, Dr. Frances Cress Wilson, her body of work, brilliant woman, brilliant scholar. I was honored to be able to sit at her feet myself at her lectures she did at Howard University, Making of the White Man, Paul Laurence Guthrie. Check this out. Again, this is just sharing with you guys a different perspective, other than we are all the same except for the color of our skin. This is the history of white people. This is a Bible book, just going into the history of who they are. All right, family. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. Again, I just reiterate, I wanted to redo it. So I did share some different information on this video than the one I did yesterday, but it kept skipping. And I wanted to be crystal clear and with my point of view and my perspective to share with you guys. And I just say that if I said anything that resonated with you and you think that others should hear too, share the video with others so we can all be, gain a better understanding. And I'm on the Empower Hour talk show every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. I share the platform with my sister Hanifa. We talk about a lot of these things, a lot of these different types of issues as it relates to us. So I encourage you to tune in. You can find our Facebook page under Empower Our Talk Show, or you can find any of our past episodes on YouTube under Miss Free the People. I encourage you to subscribe to our channel. All right, family, thank you so much. Take care of each other. Peace.